Welcome to Campaign Chronicles, our daily look at the race for the French presidency. Now, on Wednesday, the two candidates left in the race went head-to-head on the subject of jobs and the economy. Nicolas Sarkozy said he was the candidate of real work. François Hollande fired back by calling him the candidate of real unemployment and saying he would cut the jobless rate faster. And for more on this, I'm now joined by press reviewer Elena Casas. Hello, Elena. Some pretty harsh words there. Unemployment, though, obviously a big deal. It keeps going up. It stands at around 10% right now. So what are these two candidates suggesting that they'll do about it then?
Well, what happened yesterday really was that after 2 or 3 days dominated by Nicolas Sarkozy going for a hard right line to try and chase down those Front National voters that we've talked so much about, yesterday François Hollande tried to get the things he wants to talk about back onto the headlines in the centre of the campaign, and that is jobs in the economy. He says that's why 18% of people voted for the Front National. It's because they don't have any jobs, because they're worried about their own spending power and getting to the end of the months. That's what he says he has the answers to. So as Les Echos explains today, he said once he's president, he's going to try and stop firms laying off people in such huge numbers. France's second biggest security firm, for example, yesterday announced that they're shedding 5,000 jobs. He says he's going to find a way to stop that and also stop companies outsourcing jobs so easily to outside of France, which has been a big issue of this campaign, of course. And he also said he's going to announce 500,000 new jobs for young people where the state will pay the charges so that it's cheaper for the employers to hire them. Now, Les Echos, the business paper, has been summing up, or balancing up rather, his jobs policy and Nicolas Sarkozy's. Sarkozy's is more balanced on trying to reduce the cost of work for the employer, but less balanced on the state trying to finance people's jobs. Now, Les Echos, though, says that what really needs to be done is that some more flexible job contracts need to be created in France, essentially making it easier to fire people in order to encourage companies to hire them in the first place, which neither of the candidates is really suggesting doing because, of course, trying to attack France's very stable system of jobs for life, which still exists here in France, doesn't really in the rest of Europe, is pretty controversial. It's not something the French want to hear. But that's what Les Echos thinks they ought to be talking about. Now, over in L'Express magazine today, they actually accused Nicolas Sarkozy of putting pressure on some of France's biggest companies to put off planned layoffs until after the election, so it doesn't look too embarrassing for him that they sack people in the middle of an election campaign. So some of France's biggest companies, including Carrefour and some other big ones, might indeed have a slate of layoffs to come immediately after the election because Sarkozy has managed to put pressure on them to put them off until then. But whether or not François Hollande's policies would be able to stop them from doing that is quite another question.
Now, the unions, they're certainly happy that he's at least brought this up. They're very happy you talked about it yesterday.
They absolutely are. The CGT, one of France's biggest unions, specifically called on its members to vote for Hollande yesterday. That's upset Le Figaro, the right-wing paper, which has got CGT's call to vote against Sarkozy divides the unions. It's not strictly true that it's divided the unions. Most of France's big unions have been opposed to Sarkozy recently. They think that he's attacked organised labour rights. He's upset them, especially recently, by saying he's going to have a big rally on the 1st of May here by the Eiffel Tower in central Paris. 1st of May, of course, is the Workers' Day here in France. It's a big union celebration. They don't want to see it usurped by the right, so they're not happy with that at all. Over at L'Humanité, the left-wing paper, they've got workers on the front page. They've been around interviewing people working in factories who risk losing their jobs, and they all say they're glad Hollande is putting this subject back on the campaign agenda, and they hope he'll do something concrete about it if elected.
And Hollande also spoke about Europe because, of course, it's all related with the European debt crisis, and he says that he wants to renegotiate the fiscal pact for it to concentrate more on growth.
Yes, absolutely. And Olivia Salazar-Winspear has been looking at that.
He's promised the French people change, and François Hollande's already detailing just how he'd shake things up if he's elected next month. The Socialist candidate said he'd renegotiate the EU fiscal treaty, calling for measures to promote growth to counterbalance the austerity that the current pact calls for.
The fiscal pact should be combined with a growth pact. The day after the vote, if I am elected, I will send a letter to all the European heads of state on the renegotiation of the treaty.
New elements that Hollande wants to usher in include the financing of infrastructure projects through Eurobonds. He also wants the European Investment Bank to take a more active role and to introduce a tax on financial transactions. Hollande underlined the importance of growth in any economic recovery, citing the National Front's impressive performance at the first-round poll as an example of French voters desperate in the face of growing unemployment. In Germany, his comments were received cautiously. Angela Merkel's government has consistently pushed for tough budgetary responsibility, and Hollande's suggestions could put him at odds with his partners in Berlin.
First, Francois Hollande is not president yet. It is all still hanging in the balance, and he needs to realize that in European politics, almost everything is a question of compromise. Achieving these compromises is very difficult.
Analysts maintain that even if Hollande seeks out other European alliances, the Franco-German relationship will still be a linchpin of the EU, and France's next president may have to live up to the successful pairing of Sarkozy and Merkel.
Now, you saw the reaction from Germany to Hollande's European policy in that report. In some of Europe's more fringe countries, the countries most suffering from tough austerity measures like Spain, Italy, Greece, a lot of the left-wing press and left-wing politicians really starting to see Francois Hollande as the possible figurehead of a new kind of Europe based around growth rather than austerity policy. Because, of course, France is such a big country, such an important economic heavyweight, they're hoping that if it turns to the left, that could help change the whole direction of Europe if you can then renegotiate a budget treaty that's more based around growth rather than forcing countries into these tight budget cuts. The problem, though, of course, is the fear that his policy would be forced to change completely once he is in office, once he realises or, is forced to confront how little money France has. Some of the newspapers are saying he would then end up, we might not see much of this actually happening.
Of course, we'll have to wait till May 6th to find out if he is indeed the next president. All right, thank you very much, Elena. That's it for Campaign Chronicles, and that's it from me. Thanks very much for watching. Do stay tuned to France 24.